This is It's on Drudge. Every day, the Drudge Report serves a slice of insanity from our world. And for the next few minutes, we're going to eat it. Let's begin. Hey listeners, this is my first episode in a couple of months now, and I can't tell you how good it feels to be back. I've been dealing with some medical issues, and let me just let you know that I think I'm good to go, and I'm so happy to be back. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you continue to listen in the future. Thank you. Death at porn audition. Whatever the story of your worst job interview was, at least you didn't die, I hope, which is more than what a 20-year-old waiter in Spain can say when he went to, quote, audition for a porn film. What sounded like a little to no commitment way to get laid ended up being the last thing this guy would ever do. No, he didn't die in the middle of the act, although that would have made a decent snuff film, but instead drowned in the villa's pool where filming was taking place, shortly after his audition ended. There's little word on what actually happened as police are still investigating, but this could serve as inspiration for any aspiring screenwriter looking to make a sequel to Boogie Nights. Bieber, pitfalls of fame, drugs, women, hard to get out of bed. It's hard to feel bad for uber-rich celebrities who have some of life's greatest pleasures available to them at their beck and call. But that doesn't stop them from sending out long, drawn-out apologies for their 100 million followers to see. Justin Bieber, if you haven't heard, decided to turn his life around and got hooked up with a church. Now, I'm not ragging on him for making a productive life decision, but watching him give his mea culpa over Instagram for living what I'm sure was a wonderfully debaucherous youth is a tad unsettling. The enduring appeal of microliving. Microliving, the whimsical term given to living in a real small house not because you're poor, but because you decided you wanted to, is set to continue its way probably until it's made into a Wes Anderson film. The trend is influenced by years of housing insecurity brought on by the mortgage crisis of 2008 and an overall difficulty for millennials to afford purchasing a home. An enterprising young man saw the opportunity to cash in on tiny house enthusiasts and built an Instagram page with more than 700,000 followers, along with releasing a book with different tiny houses from throughout the world. Why am I sitting here making this podcast again? Feminist capitalist professor under fire. In today's day and age, it's okay to be an outspoken leftist academic as long as everything you say falls within tribal lines. As soon as you spout anything that can even be perceived as against what the agenda is, you suffer the same fate as Professor Camille Paglia. Reading her story, she is exactly what you imagine a liberal college professor being. Pro-sex, feminist, a huge fan of Madonna. However, she went awry of college students by criticizing them on a lack of knowledge and life experiences. Gee, I wonder where she got that from. Despite this arguably being completely true for most of them, her students did what they do best and got offended before calling for her resignation. When you really look into what she said, it's as simple as, hey, you guys have grown up having exactly everything available to you at all times, so you don't understand what scarcity and having to take personal responsibility for failure means. Reasonable. Maybe a few decades ago, this would have been taken as a valuable life lesson. But nowadays, it's an attack on their dignity, which merits this otherwise left-compliant professor losing her livelihood. Oh, progressives. Free money. In California, buzzy campaign idea gets test run. The Yang Gang free money movement, inspired by presidential candidate Andrew Yang's promise to provide every American with a, quote, freedom dividend of $1,000 a month, is getting some trial runs in California of all places. A local nonprofit in Stockton is giving citizens $500 a month and tracks what it is they do with that money in the first place. It's nothing too extreme for one resident in her 60s, things like paying cell phone bills and buying presents for her grandchildren. And I'm sure for a lot of people, that's where the government money would go to. However, it would be naive to think that at least some miscreants won't use any no-strings-attached cash to fund destructive habits like drugs, alcohol, and prostitution. This pilot project in California provides some nice stories of grannies getting to spend some time with their kids, but that doesn't mean people won't revert to what they do when no one is watching, screwing up. Epic racing movie as real as ever gonna get. Move over, Talladega Nights. Christian Bale and Matt Damon are bringing their own version of Shake and Bake to the racing epic semi-biographical drama, Ford vs. Ferrari. The film tells a story of the American auto ingenuity machine known as the Ford Motor Company, going up against the cars as art legend of Ferrari. The star actors in this film play the race car drivers entrusted to demonstrate the full potential of the machines their legendary car daddies made for them. Now, don't just walk into this film expecting fast car crash sequences. It's peppered in with a hint of absurdist comedy, perfect for a film as ill-prepared for the times we live in now, where news about new speed machines plays second fiddle to Uber's latest breakthrough in the self-driving vehicle space, or Elon Musk's pet car project. Fox host. Why is Drudge covering news? Conservatives are going for each other's jugulars in this world of the inquiry of the century, an event that sounds slightly less exciting when you put it in those words. Fox News' attempt at breeding a groovy young Republican, and that's in quotes, as I'm sure it was described exactly before scientists began mixing proteins in test tubes to create this person. Jesse Waters noted the large amount of stories on the Drudge Report which placed Trump in a negative light. Now, based on the fact that I'm doing this show, I consider myself a bit of a well-versed individual on all matters Drudge, and I haven't particularly noted any anti-Trump slant on recent weeks' batch of news aggregations. That's saying a lot, considering half the internet is a montage of Sig burns directed at the Trump administration. Still, it's right out of the protagonist down in the dumps playbook which I have seen in so many countless movies to see such a nasty infighting in the hero's camp before they eventually prevail against the forces of evil. Let's hope this one repeats itself for Pelosi. Students turn against free speech amid, quote, culture of conformity. Our limey friends across the pond don't have freedom of speech spelled out for them in their constitution, making it much easier for misguided college students to campaign for its banishment from the public square in favor of safe spaces in what they call a growing, quote, culture of conformity. Yes, because the most comfortable and least oppressed generation since ancient humans were taken care of by the aliens have a right to call us conformist. The students' laughable demands are nonetheless not surprising, even considering their outrageousness, which is saying something for our current society. Some of the most Orwellian include fellow students being punished for wearing so-called offensive costumes during Halloween, and the First Amendment being amended again to stop, quote, inflammatory comments. Remember, these are students who pay thousands of dollars to supposedly become the educated amongst us. Please join me in capping open a cold one in despair for the future of our planet. Inside cult quietly operating in New York for decades. Cults full of and led by insane people are all the rage these days. Everyone's heard about the diabolical sex cult where Smallville actress Allison Mack pressured people into getting the cult leader's initials branded onto their genitals. But another cult, bred out of a failed San Francisco theater troupe, has been operating under the shadows in New York City for decades before some former members spoke out of the downright abuse they suffered at the hands of the manipulative leadership. While no physical torture took place, akin to what the unpronounceable cult we spoke about earlier engaged in, where this cult made its money, literally, was conning its oftentimes wealthy members into forking up fortunes to the benefit of its elusive leader. The cult's raison d'etre was basically to drain millions of dollars from the people while they also worked for free, building massive estates in upstate New York under the guise that the path to enlightenment was hard labor and intentional suffering. You would think any reasonable prospective cult member would instead opt to the weird sex one with the mass, but for the unlucky few who still stuck with it despite what have to be two of the worst word combinations in the English language, they were rewarded with psychological scars that will follow them for a lifetime. San Francisco's new district attorney. Public urination, quote, will not be prosecuted. For a city in the news a lot for its literal being covered in pee and crap, San Francisco's elected leaders are doing, well, unsurprisingly little to calm down the stench. The new district attorney in San Francisco has made the unprecedented leadership decision of now allowing people to pee openly on the streets. I guess now peeing on the streets will become the city sport in San Francisco, a place that might as well become its own planet by now. Listeners, I need your feedback to make the show tolerable. Did you learn something? Does it suck? These are the things I would never find out for myself because I lack self-awareness. Send us your thoughts to itsondrudge@gmail.com. Again, that's itsondrudge@gmail.com. That's it for today. We're on weekdays at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock Central. I'll catch you later, and stay informed.